Good Wednesday afternoon to you at 4 o'clock. Time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns getting ready to open the season at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. Back out on the practice field after a player's day off in Berea. Some encouraging news. Scott Petrak tweets this out. Denzel Ward still in concussion protocol, but will be practicing on a limited basis today. Again, that's one of the steps of progressing through the concussion protocol, making it through practice. So hopefully Deshaun Watson can clear all the Denzel Ward can clear all the benchmarks and get back and be available for the opener. Deshaun Watson met with the media today, talked about playing in his first home opener in Cleveland, as well as returning to the form that he was so good at with the Texans in 2020.
I mean, I expect nothing but great, positive, fun, loud energy. And that's one of the reasons why I chose Cleveland is the fan base. I want that feeling how you used to feel, that college atmosphere. The fans are up, they're loud, they're cheering on the offense, they're cheering on the defense, the special teams. When guys make big plays, we're getting the energy going in the stadium. And, a lot of people, especially as players, we feed off the fans, and the fans feed off us. So if we can match those two, I think we can have a lot of success.
Deshaun, going into this season, there's so many expectations for this team, and also for you as a player. So for you to return to that guy we saw in Houston that could just take over games, what has to happen for you?
Just be me. And, I don't want to return as a guy to Houston. I want to be better than that guy. So what I was 2023, 3 years ago, I'm not the same guy. So I feel like I've improved, I've evolved to a new level, and I'm ready to be able to show that. Last year was a tricky time where, I was learning everything, but I don't want to just get caught up on, hey, Houston this, Houston that. I had a lot of fun, a lot of success in Houston, but I want to have that success and start something new in Cleveland.
So a lot of people say, can you get back to the level you were at in 2020, 2019? You're saying you want to be better than even that level.
Of course, and I know I can be.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, did you notice looking right at the guy that asked him the question, can you be better than him? Eye contact, yep, I know I can be.
Well, I think the thing that a lot of people don't discuss with this is what is now around Deshaun Watson as opposed to what he did in 2020 in Houston. And it was an incredible season. And it was so good that you literally had J.J. Watt go up to him at the end of the final game of the season and basically apologize for the behalf of the other 52 players on that team. Granted, J.J. Watt was, not the player he was then, but hey, man, you really, really had a solid year. And it's a shame it kind of got wasted on a team that just wasn't, basically, on the par that your talent is. Now, he's got this dynamic wide receiver core that goes 4, 5 deep pretty easily. Of course, David Njoku's still an emerging tight end, a guy who came into the league as young as he did. You add Akins to this, a guy that he is familiar with. You still have Nick Chubb, which we haven't mentioned. You still have the Browns offensive line, which we have not mentioned. It's a different, maybe it doesn't have to do as much, is probably the craziest way to describe it. When Baker Mayfield had his heights of success for the Cleveland Browns, whether it was 2018 or whether it was 2020 when this team went to the playoffs, it was simple. Get the ball, make your reads. Somebody's going to be open. You have enough talent that somebody's going to be open. It might not be your first option. It could be. It might be your fourth or fifth option, but somebody's going to be open. Just throw the ball to the open guy. If he can do that and play within himself and still add that pizzazz that Deshaun Watson has as far as his overall talent, there's no reason that, Deshaun Watson should not put up a monster season for the Browns this year.
All right. We've talked about this all off season, so what's one more ridiculous quarterback ranking? This one belongs to the Ringer. They have Patrick Mahomes 1, Josh Allen 2, Justin Herbert 3. Those aren't problems. Matthew Stafford 9, Kyler Murray is ranked 12th, Geno Smith 13th, Ryan Tannehill 19th, and Deshaun Watson 21st. Biggest strength, creativity. Biggest weakness, pocket presence. I guess if you're judging this based on last year, he wasn't in the offense. If you're judging this based on Houston, it's hard to have pocket presence when the offensive line isn't allowing you to stay in the pocket. So I just scratch my head with some of these rationales.
Well, first things first, there's no way in the world Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson, even if Deshaun Watson was forced to throw left-handed. Let's stop. The Tennessee Titans have drafted quarterbacks in back-to-back drafts. That's how concerned they are about Ryan Tannehill. If they were confident in Ryan Tannehill, they wouldn't have drafted those quarterbacks. Second, again, can we factor in everything else? A quarterback's going to play as well as the surroundings he has around him. Deshaun has top-shelf stuff around him now. Now, the other thing is, you can't say his creativity is great, but his pocket presence is a negative. Guys who are creative, quarterbacks who are creative, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, these guys at times are going to leave a clean pocket. Why? Because they've made so many plays over their career out on the run, out on the move, or opening up the ability for them to just say, I don't see it, I'm taking it, I'm running it, I'm going to get a first down, we'll reset, and we'll go from there. So it's a difficult thing to say that one of his biggest strengths is creativity, but one of his biggest weaknesses is pocket presence. That's tough. And look, if you're going to base this off last year, that's fine. There were some issues with pocket presence, but that was also maybe a little bit also on the left tackle for the Cleveland Browns last year, who did not have, he's still not lived up to the expectations the Browns had when they drafted him number 10 overall. Look, Lamar, as long as he plays within himself, plays within the system, and understands that each drive can only score a maximum of 7 to 8 points, he'll be fine. And this also equates into the fact that everybody else on the team is doing what they're doing. The defense is doing what they're doing. When you get the ball and you're down 14-0, sometimes you try to do too much. Every quarterback's been guilty of that in the history of the game. 21st, and look, Deshaun Watson, very active on social media. Let's see where this continues to go. If he does play at the pace that I think most of us think he's going to play at, these, lists are probably going to be pretty laughable in a couple of months.
Yeah, again, the other thing is, guys like Watson have the belief they can make every throw, so they hang on to the ball a little longer. You live if it means he's going to take an extra sack, but he's going to hit 2 30-yard passes. You live with that, and you say, thank you, let's move on. You touched on this a little bit. What do you think the Browns' offensive philosophy should be or will be? This is from one of your Locked On Browns podcasts.
Well, the thing is, in years past, and you go back to 2019 when things didn't go right during the Freddie Kitchens era, this was a team that was trying to transition then to a team that was going to throw the ball more. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr. And a lot of weeks, what did we see? All of a sudden, after 2 drives, the Browns were down 10-0. They were down 13-0. They were down 14-0. And then guess what? Oh, well, let's just get Nick Chubb involved. And the next thing you know, it was 10-7, 13-7, or 14-7. It was a 6-play drive. Nick Chubb had 45 yards on the ground. You have to, and it's going to be tough for them as they are making this change and, going to become a team that's going to throw the ball a lot more than they're going to run it. But you can't forget about the importance and the abilities of a Nick Chubb. We're not just going to put him on ice for a couple of seasons because you want to throw the ball more. You're throwing the ball more now because you're not trying to beat the mid teams, the lower teams in the NFL anymore. You're trying to beat the better teams. You've got to be able to go drive for drive with the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, et cetera, et cetera. But you have that nice mix. And even a team like San Francisco 49ers who went to the NFC Championship game last year, they brought in Christian McCaffrey. Why? Because they weren't getting everything they thought they could get out of their running back position, whether it was running the ball, whether it was throwing it to the running back. You've got to make sure you can maintain this balance. But what you've got on the outside and what you've invested, obviously, in your quarterback, what you've invested in your wide receivers. You have Amari Cooper on a contract, of course. You Donovan Peoples-Jones waiting for hopefully an extension for himself. The move for Elijah Moore, Tillman, Goodwin. There is talent everywhere on this offensive side of the ball, so you're not going to ignore that. You're going to throw the ball more often. But you can't sleep on the fact that you still have that number 24 in your back pocket. And I think what they're trying to do is to get defenses so concerned about Deshaun and the aerial attack that these may be some of the easy, and we've seen Nick Chubb have some easy runs in his career. But I think they're trying to transition to where it's almost where Nick Chubb becomes an afterthought for the defense because they have to put so much time and attention to everything that Deshaun's doing and obviously all the weapons that he has on the field with him.
All right, before we go to break, how much of the offense do you think Kevin Stefanski has held back? There have to be some wrinkles that you didn't show in preseason that they've been working on. How much do you think has been held back? What do you expect to see some that we haven't seen yet?
Deshaun rolling out. I mean, that is one of the biggest things, because you have a quarterback who is capable of running the ball. And then you can develop these high lows, according to coverage. Obviously, somebody's going to run long, somebody's going to basically run a post, somebody's going to run a crosser, and you still may have back out. And once those things start to succeed, guess what you can do off of that? You can start doing screen game off of that, because everybody starts rolling to the right. The defense is going to start rolling towards the Deshaun, and then you can get your backdoor screens to your tight ends, you get your backdoor screens to your running backs. Getting Deshaun on the move, and that's usually when a guy who has the athleticism that Deshaun has, you don't want to just say, all right, we'll stay in the pocket, pick them apart, this type of thing. You kind of got to let an athlete go be an athlete. We're in this era now where it's weird to see that most teams, one of the best athletes on their team are the quarterbacks. But let them go do what they do best. And, they don't want to sit in the pocket and be traditional passers. They want to have the option of, I can go long, I can go medium, I can go short, or guess what? I can just take it myself and go get the first down.
Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also want you to voicemail us your predictions for the Browns-Bengals game. Give us the score, who you think's going to do well, some things we should look out for. We'll use them on Friday's show. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
In my opinion, I honestly feel like not just the national media, but I feel like the Bengals fans, the Bengals themselves haven't really been giving us our just due or giving us our respect. We've beaten them 5 times in our last couple meetings, and they still don't respect us. It's almost like they look at us like they've been beating us for years, and we just can't beat them. So I think that come Sunday, we got to come out fast, and we have to really demand respect, not only just from the Cincinnati Bengals, but from the national media. But what I come to realize is no matter what we do or no matter how successful the Browns become, they will always find an excuse on why we're still just not good enough.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, the beauty of it is they decide those things on the field. They can talk all they want. If they go out and win, there will be plenty of people jumping on the bandwagon. And the Bengals have been to the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Winners want to rehash the last hand. Losers say shut up and deal. The Browns the last 2 years, it's shut up and deal.
Well, I mean, the thing is there should be some absolute respect from the Cincinnati Bengals as far as the Cleveland Browns. This is a team that, for whatever reason it is, they can't match up, and they do not match up well with this team. But, going 1-4 during Joe Burrow's era as starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, it has not deterred them from going to a Super Bowl and then following it up by going to a second straight AFC Championship game. But, facts are facts. They don't play well against this team. And now you look at what's been the difference in these games in years past. Well, the Browns' defensive line always played like world beaters against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Myles Garrett is a world beater. Everybody else, I mean, we're talking about guys that, some of them are on the practice squads in the NFL, and some of them even aren't on the practice squad. These are guys that played in these games last year for the Cleveland Browns. Now you bring in a Zadarius Smith, you bring in Agbanaya Okoronkwo, you bring in Dalvin Tomlinson, you bring in Shelby Harris, all established NFL players. The Browns' defensive line has always eaten well against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now you have this where it's going to be a lot more talented group. Offensively, they always have issues with Nick Chubb. It's always been an issue. Donovan Peoples-Jones plays his best games every season against the Cincinnati Bengals, going back to his rookie year with that miraculous touchdown, reception in the corner from Baker Mayfield. I get where Browns fans are at, but the other thing is, if the Browns fans had a losing record against the Bengals the last few years, but also went to a Super Bowl and AFC Championship, I'm pretty sure the talks would be the exact same thing.
Yeah. The beauty is it starts all over Sunday, so we'll see where that goes.
You won the consolation prize. That's the way Bengals fans look at it.
All right, X Factor for all 32 NFL teams. This is from The Ringer. Browns' Zadarius Smith. On a Jim Schwartz defense, the line, the front four are going to rush, and they're going to do nothing but. I imagine most teams will throw tons of pass protection attention at Garrett and dare Smith to punish them early in the season. It's on Smith to do exactly that, forcing offenses to rebalance the scales. Yeah, Jim Schwartz's front fours go after the quarterback. The other thing, we had Mike Lombardi on a couple weeks ago, who knows Jim Schwartz really well. He said Jim Schwartz's defensive line will stop the run. If it's not, he will fix it.
Well, and then you get into the point of the way the Browns built this. Bringing in, Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo being brought in first, then you bring in Zadarius Smith. You still had Alex Wright on the roster. You drafted Isaiah McGuire. Wright was the top 100 pick. McGuire was like 107 or 108 in the drafts. These are guys that are all expected to be contributing factors. So the Browns went 5 deep at defensive end. Why? Because they think they're going to be able to stop the run. Why? Because they think they're going to be a winning football team. And they're going to have to defend the pass and play against teams that are going to have to pass to try to come back in games. There's just so much Jim can do here. Does he want to play 4 edges? Because he can run F4 out there at any given time. He can put Miles on the inside. He can certainly put Zadarius Smith on the inside. He can certainly put Alex Wright on the inside. There are a lot of ways that he can handle this. And bringing Zadarius in here, for most of his career, he was always the number 1 pass rusher for his team. So he was the focal point. He was the guy that teams wanted to take away. Now he gets to play in a system where all eyes are on 95. He should see a lot more one-on-ones than he has in the years past. He can play. They're going to let him line up against right tackles. They're going to let him line up against left tackles. They're going to let him line up against guards, and basically just take this guy who's getting towards the glamour part of his career. Is they just go out there and get after the quarterback. We'll figure everything else out. For Zadarius, this is going to be a really, really nice situation for him, and it could be one of the most quiet 12-sack seasons you ever hear, because Myles Garrett has put up 16 sacks in the last 2 seasons, and now playing with this type of personnel around him, I'm not really sure how offenses are going to be able to focus on him like they have in the years past, while he still had the success he did.
So you mentioned how well Garrett has played against the Bengals. This gives a little bit of context. At least 1 sack against the Bengals in 6 straight games. And I know you've addressed this on your Locked On Browns podcast. Browns' new defensive line, it sure seems like everything's set up to have a pretty big day against the Bengals, doesn't it?
Well, you go back to this. Last year, Taven Bryant was second on the team in sacks with 3. Well, you brought in Zadarius Smith. You brought in Agbo Okoronkwo. Both of those guys had more than 3 sacks last year. Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, they both had 2.5. Guess what? They would have been 3rd on this team in sacks last year. And again, the guys you've moved out, Chase Winovich is a practice squad player. Tommy Togiai just got released from a practice squad. So these guys that you're moving on from, it shows how big the gap and the talent gap is from what you had here last year as opposed to what you have here for this year. Look, it's always eaten well against this Bengals team. And, to be even, to take those Myles Garrett numbers, in the 1-4 that Joe Burrow is against the Cincinnati Bengals, Myles Garrett has had almost 2 sacks a game. He has 9 sacks in those 5 games. He has 30 total pressures in those games. Those are monster numbers. He knows this franchise. He knows it inside out. And the Bengals, as much as everybody was, we brought in Orlando Brown Jr. Orlando Brown Jr. is a very, very decorated right tackle in the NFL. Yes, he's played a lot of left tackle. But left tackle, he's not the same guy he is on the right side. And we've seen him on the left side. We've seen him on the left side down in Baltimore playing against Myles Garrett. And those days were not good. So now you're going to do that. Now you got to add some help to Orlando Brown on Myles Garrett if he's out there. And you're creating one-on-ones for players like Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Zadarius Smith, and Agbo Okoronkwo. It's, and to keep in mind, all of it is, Joe Burrow, yes, he's ready to go, all of that stuff. We all thought he was going to be good to go. But, he wouldn't have played in the preseason anyway. That's not the way Bengals do business. But you're coming back against one of the most difficult defensive lines that you're most likely going to face the entire season. So, healthy or not, that's not going to be the question. The problem is going to be there's going to be people in his face all day long.
All right, before we go to break, one guy that knows how a Jim Schwartz defense is supposed to look is Rodney McLeod. McLeod talked about where the Browns' defense is getting ready for this Bengals game.
I think we're ready. We're very excited about the challenge that's ahead of us. Division winners, great all-around team, good skill group, and great quarterback. And so, we have to bring our best. But, I think we've been working hard for this moment in time to really go out this week one and establish our identity for the season.
What has made Joe Burrow so good, young, as a young quarterback in this league? Seems like he's really elevated himself amongst the elites already.
Yeah, I think you see him show up every single game for his team. Great leader, has great command of the offense, makes good decisions, and understands his playmaker strengths. And he does a good job at getting them the ball and runs the offense very well. So, he's established himself and is highly regarded and respected in this league.
And again, that's a guy that knows what the Jim Schwartz defense should look like. So he's feeling good about what he sees. That's a good sign.
Well, I mean, there's everybody wants to make it out like this Rodney McLeod was brought in here because he's an extension of Jim Schwartz. The reality is, according to PFF, Rodney McLeod was the 8th best safety in the NFL last season. So he can play. It's not like he's coming in here and he's an extension of the coaching staff. This guy still can perform at a legit level. The other thing, and we've talked about this, Dave, is you're bringing in players who have legit expectations. Rodney McLeod won a Super Bowl. Agba Okoronkwo, he won a Super Bowl. Zadarius Smith has been a part of many, many playoff runs. You brought guys in here. Juan Thornhill. Juan Thornhill's got 2 rings. You brought guys in here who not just understand what the expectation is, have experienced what the expectation is, along with Jim Schwartz as well. This should be what's driving this defense, and hopefully it becomes a perfect unison, a perfect marriage between the offense and the defense.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from Anthony Walker. Sports from CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. How you doing? Just been feeling pretty sour because Denzel worked with the concussion protocol. It seems like it's always something every year. I think Haslam is the culprit, and I do believe that he uses the Browns like a farm team. And when it comes down to it, players like Chubb, Garrett, all the key players will be, somehow he'll get a payment for them players. I'm just not really feeling really good. We have a stout defense, and the offense looks great. And for some reason, I'm just going on just old vibes. Because every year we get excited every day, and nothing happens. And so I just don't trust Haslam because I think he's affiliated with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Him and Art Rooney was pretty good friends, and that's just my gut. So thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, if you want to criticize the way that Jimmy Haslam moved on from coaches early in his tenure, okay. But he's spending an awful lot of money to make sure that the Browns are able to keep good players and acquire good players.
And not to mention, they're currently sitting in a position where both their head coach and general manager, if things go well this season, it would be extension time for both of those gentlemen as well. Myles Garrett, I'm sure Myles Garrett's camp is looking at the latest defensive end contract that was just handed out today, Nick Bosa, and going down the list and going, we're down here already? So, I mean, look, Jimmy has been the consummate owner. I think the problem for Jimmy was having belief and having faith that a product looked like it was going to be something that was going to be a winner. And, granted, the only little bit of success that they had was 2020 with a playoff win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, ironically enough. I think he understands what maybe it looks like a little bit more now. And there's the willingness to pull the plug on a Zadarius Smith, even after the draft, adding money into the fold. Understanding that there are still more players to come that you're going to have to start talking about contract. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Grant Delpit, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, where you're going to have to start having those conversations here soon as well. I think for Jimmy's a businessman. He needed to see and believe that this was going to be a successful product before you start committing billions, because that's basically what it is, billions of dollars to it. But I think that is where Jimmy is with this team right now. I think Jimmy believes that he's finally got a winner. And, unlike fans and unlike certain other major media groups, we don't sit here and just say, oh, well, it's going to fall apart because it always falls apart because of the Browns. That's not analysis. That's not how we do business.
Yeah, and you know what? They're spending more money than anybody. So keep everybody that wants a Cleveland owner that spends a lot of money, you got one. You got one. All right. Anthony Walker talked about the biggest additions to the Browns defense this year.
I say every piece matters. Each person has brought, their own personality to it, starting with Jim Schwartz, all the way down to Zadarius, to Shelby, to DT, to all those guys. They've all brought something that we really need to this defense. So I can't pick out one person, but I think as a unit we've gotten better.
Jeff, I keep going back to this. I think it's Jim Schwartz because this defense has an identity already, and it didn't the last 3 years.
Oh, he absolutely bought you brand name, obviously credibility. The one name that Anthony Walker didn't mention, and one thing that stuck out from the Kansas City Chiefs game, granted it wasn't Patrick Mahomes, this team never, in the 7 years I've covered, has had a free safety that drives on the ball, makes the play, and returns it to the house, which we saw from Juan Thornhill in the final preseason game. You add that, and obviously McLeod and everybody else here. You basically almost brought in, you brought in a brand new defensive line. You needed one piece in the secondary. You needed a true free safety. Well, you got him. You got a hybrid safety who can do anything you ask of him, McLeod, who came in here, and Delpit's never been the issue in his time here. This defense is plugged in. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, the Bengals might be a tough draw week one. Maybe, but just maybe, because the Browns have had so much success against this franchise the last few years, it's probably the best of these teams that they're going to play through the first 6 weeks of the 5 teams to get, because it's not that hard. There's a lot of this coaching staff that was here for these past Bengal victories. So the game plan should be the same as it was in those years, just you're playing with a much, much more talented roster on defense.
All right, before I let you go, I know you've addressed this again on the Locked On Browns podcast. You got a bunch of new players that are going to make their debut for the Browns coming up Sunday against Bengals. Who are you most excited to see? You can give me 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, my God, so many. I think it starts with Elijah Moore. I mean, look, Elijah Moore was the talk of summer. And what the Browns, I think, are trying to do is to have, when Elijah Moore is on the field, they want Elijah Moore to be the guy that whoever's making the calls in the secondary says, there's 8. All right, so you that, and everything trickles down from there. Defensively, I think it's really, the former wide receiver in me, to say I'm going to sit here and probably be on the edge of my seat to watch defensive line play. I am. We just haven't had it. And you saw it, and you even saw it in the games where the starters didn't play. What did you see? Linebackers just running around freely making plays. It seems like such a foreign concept, but that is the basic premises of what the linebacker position is. The Browns just didn't have the personnel who could do that. They do now, and then you add in all these pass rushers. And it'll be nice to maybe see Myles Garrett not have to be grabbing his thigh pads late in the fourth quarter because he's already ripped through 60 snaps. Maybe you can get, a little bit less of Miles on the field might give you a little bit more of a 100% of Myles Garrett for every play that he is on the field. And I think that's where this defense is trending. Of course, we'll find out probably, 120 something hours from now or whatever. But I'm really, really excited to see this product in action because even Kansas City, you saw it for 30 minutes and you loved what you saw. And now try to extrapolate that over maybe a 60-minute product. I just don't see how it is not a winning team.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. As always, great stuff. Thanks, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Everybody enjoy Sunday.
All right, Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out, Locked On Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Deshaun Watson met with the media today, talked about his confidence level in this offense this season.
I'm very confident, and I just really, to add on to that, is just all the work has been put in. So we're going to continue to put in the work until that first whistle and the ball is kicked off, and then we just got to go out there and just go play and just put things together and execute. And I think that's the biggest thing. Go out there on the field and know that we put in the work, and we have the team and the players around and the coaching staff with the game plan to go out there and execute to try to win, for our Cleveland Browns.
With that, let's welcome in Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Brad, you'd say a lot of things about Deshaun Watson as a quarterback for the Browns last year. He didn't look comfortable. He didn't look confident. Whatever the reason, he looks very, very different, at least in the preseason.
Yeah, and I think it's to be expected, right? I mean, I think as good as you are as a player, when you're missing that much time, not even just going through the motion, throwing in practice, but also having 300-pound freak athletes running after you at full speed, it's going to change the calculus of what you're trying to do. So I think a full offseason also working as the number one for every single rep with Kevin Stefanski, another year with Amari Cooper, David Njoku. He's always loved targeting tight ends, going back to Houston. You're going to see a different Deshaun Watson starting this season.
All right, so you came up with quarterback tiers. Let's take a look at this from Twitter. So Tier 1 was Pat. That's Patrick Mahomes. Tier 2, battle for number 2. Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence. Tier 3, I love this one. Actual good NFC quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. And then Tier 4, good enough good. So you got Stafford, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Geno Smith, and Tua in that. In your mind, what are your biggest questions about Watson, I guess, is where we're at.
I'm not sure I expect to talk about that goofy post I put up on Twitter with the show today. But no, I think that actually is one of the more serious categories of all the category names there, where, I think they've proven and shown that they are good enough to be, what that means is contenders, to lead a team to a Super Bowl or deep in the playoffs. Obviously, guys like a Matthew Stafford, where once he had a good supporting cast, then we saw him ultimately, reach that ultimate goal. My biggest concern with Watson is less so about the talent around him, maybe even less so about the rust. I think we've talked about this before, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just do think there is an interesting blend of styles with Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson. Can they find a way to figure it out, where Watson likes to, move around the pocket, dance around, create time, and find those out-of-structure deep balls, those big, explosive, chunk yardage plays, which are, of course, a great thing. But, you look at Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, you're in rhythm, you hit the top of your drop, 5-step, 7-step, and get the ball out quickly to your first read, to your second read. That's his style. They obviously can adapt to each other, but I'm just wondering if there's some warts early on they have to work through, especially with a great Cincinnati defense right out of the gate.
The other thing, he being Deshaun Watson, and you touched on it, he has a history of throwing to his tight ends. Is that something that you think maybe Kevin Stefanski has held back from? There haven't been the seam routes and those kind of things. Is that something you could see them kind of pulling back from this offense?
I do. And I think that Njoku might be the perfect guy to do it with, right? Where he is a guy that is able to create, separation downfield and has the contested catch ability. We've seen some of the crazy catches he's made over the course of his season, leaping grabs over defenders, through traffic, acrobatic one-handed catches, all those things. But I think he has the ball tracking ability that you don't see with every tight end, even the better players that are more of, get the ball early, create some yards after the catch, run through some tackles. He can do that himself and create some space for those deeper passes. I think we are going to see them attack the middle of the field a lot. I think it's why you bring Elijah Moore into the fold as well. And it's an area against defenses now where a lot of them are playing too high safeties. You want to be able to attack the middle of the field. I think that's going to be a big part of this offense.
All right, so this is another one of your tweets. So the AFC projected playoff picture. You have Jacksonville as the top seed, Chiefs 2, Bengals 3, Bills 4. You have the Browns 5, so the top wildcard team, Chargers 6, Jets 7. When you look at that, obviously the Bengals have been to a Super Bowl and AFC championship game, so you understand that. What do you think some of the keys are for the Browns to be as good as they can be? Obviously, we've talked about Watson. What else needs to happen other than Watson to be decent to good?
Yeah, and I got made fun of today, and I deserved it. I've gone back and forth on the Browns and Bengals in that division. I think PFF put out an official graphic where I did pick the Browns to win the division. So, I think those two teams right now I like the most. Obviously, Baltimore and Pittsburgh are also very talented rosters. But I think for me, it actually comes down to the defense, the other side of the ball besides Watson, where not just generating pressure with obviously all the guys they bring in, but can Dalvin Tomlinson be that anchor on the interior? Can Shelby Harris play like he's played the last couple of years despite an advanced age? And I think the thing is, when you're down in a game, for them last year, if they were down, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get the opposing offense off of the field. Look, Deshaun Watson can mount comebacks, can do those explosive things, but he can't do it if he's not playing and not out there. So that's my big thing. Can you not control time of possession, but can you never be in a scenario or a game script where you're unable to, overcome those odds and surmount that lead? That, I think, is the big thing for them this year. Can that defense get off the field?
So this is also this is from ESPN. So it's the case for every team to make the Super Bowl. So Browns, they say their chances of making the Super Bowl 2%. Chances to make the playoffs 44.1%. If Watson is right, this is one of the league's most complete teams. If he struggles in Kevin Stefanski's offense for a second season, Browns have no hope of competing in a stacked AFC North. Anything from 4-13 to 13-4 is on the table. The thing that this kind of strikes me is there probably more than anybody in the NFL, the range of outcomes for the Browns this year, nationally, and it seems to be so. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I do think they have, even objectively, one of the more, the wider range of outcomes. I think in part is because there are no easy games on this schedule, and there can, of course, be a snowball effect sometimes. If things go south early, I do think you could see things unravel a little bit. There's a lot of pressure on this team. I mean, you don't need to beat around the bush. There is a head coach, a GM, a lot of people that, they need to do well this season to probably keep their jobs and be entrenched for the long haul. But I also think it's because we just don't have any other quarterbacks with bigger question marks where he could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL by the end of the year consensus, or it could be a question of like, how soon can Cleveland get out of this contract type of thing. Like, that is his range of outcomes. And as the quarterback goes, so does the team.
Yeah, that's fair. More so than any other position in sports, the quarterback. All right, before we go to break, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. I feel like the Browns have the team to win, but if you look at the history of the NFL, you had the Brady era, now it's the Mahomes. Every 10 years, they win like 3 championships. And I think it's going to be the Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be his era next because they building him up. All the teams in our division, Pittsburgh will be the top runner over Cincinnati, I believe, this year. Because Burrow he ain't injury prone. That's my belief, and hopefully you're having a great day. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. What about it? Trevor Lawrence. I saw you have Jacksonville potentially as a number 1 seed. Are you buying Lawrence as the next best quarterback in the NFL, if you will?
Patrick Mahomes hangs up his cleats. I think he's just kind of entrenched as the number 1 guy. As boring as that may sound, as much as fans may hate to hear that, I think that is the reality. But look, I had the Jaguars number 1 in the AFC standings for a reason. Is it in part because their division might be the worst in the NFL besides them? Sure. But also, last year for us, the second half of the season, week 10 through the end of the year, was our second highest graded quarterback in the entire NFL. And then you drop in Calvin Ridley. I know we haven't seen him since 2020 for a full season, but a bona fide number 1 receiver. The guy was top 5 in yards per route run. I think it was 3rd in receiving yards that last year in 2020. And that we've seen A.J. Brown, all these guys, even Amari Cooper. We've seen what that can do to open up an offense. I think Lawrence will be a clear-cut top 10 guy, no question about it by the end of the year, maybe even top 5, top 3 conversation. He's talented as can be. Another year with Doug Peterson. I think they're going to be a special team in the near future.
Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Anthony Walker, talking a little bit about the Browns defense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Browns middle linebacker Anthony Walker talking about finally being able to play in Jim Schwartz's defensive scheme.
Yeah, you see the plays that the guys made in the preseason, and I'm just on the sideline watching, and I'm getting like really antsy. You watch the first couple drives in the Washington game, the first couple drives in the KC game, and you just want to be out there with those guys, flying around making plays. And that's the excitement around our defense right now. Everybody has the opportunity to make a play, and we don't care who make the play as long as somebody make it. And I think that's a testament to the defense, and that's also a testament to the guys that we have, a lot of unselfish guys in our room and the whole defensive room.
Brad, we talked a little bit about the defense. They're pretty deep. I mean, when you look at it, the questions that you have are usually the backups to the backups and the guys getting towards the back end of the roster.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing from Anthony Walker there and about Jim Schwartz, you and I have talked plenty about what he can do for this defensive line, but also he schemes up pressure for his off-ball linebackers too. I mean, look at David Long last year in Tennessee. Before he went down, was near the top of the NFL. I want to say he was second in pressures among off-ball linebackers behind only Devin White, who rushes the quarterback more than any other off-ball guy right now. He's going to scheme things up for him and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and create pressure, simulated pressures, and just bring guys with a full head of steam from every different angle. But yes, from a talent standpoint as well, not only the starters, but also depth at a lot of spots. And it's important. Yeah, as we know, football injuries are a part of football. If you can overcome them, which they should be able to, it goes a long way.
So this is from one of your colleagues, Sam Monson, 2023 award predictions, Pro Football Focus. Defensive Player of the Year, he goes with Myles Garrett. Garrett led the league in pass rush win rate last year, better than 22%, now has the help to ensure should lead to even better production. Browns, real playoff contenders that will only help Garrett get noticed. What do you think the ceiling is for Garrett in terms of sacks?
It's lofty. I mean, this might sound crazy, but I think it's NFL record is the ceiling, right? I mean, we're talking a guy who can have 20-plus sacks in the right system. Like he said, it's hard to also do these things when you don't have talent around you. Like we're talking about, Nick Bosa coming into this program. I'm talking to, radio and stuff about his new contract. Yes, he had 18 sacks last year and 16 before. He's had Eric Armstead around him. He's had DeForest Buckner on his team. You go back and they're not to take away from Nick Bosa, but when you're able to have other players, the offensive line and the quarterback are required to think about and adjust for, and they can't chip on you, they can't double you as often, that's going to free you up. I really do think his ceiling, especially now in a 17-game season, is 23, 24, 25 sacks. As crazy as it sounds, he is that talented.
So this is also kind of interesting. This is from Sports Illustrated. 3 reasons the Browns improved their record by 3 wins this year. Number 1, Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore. Number 2, the defensive line. And number 3, coaching. Again, all of those, if you're talking Watson and Moore, those are easy yards. We've talked about that. The Browns didn't have anybody that people wanted to play off of. But the defensive line and the coaching, I'm very curious to see how good this defense can be under Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a bunch, and I guess I should even say, too, Bubba Ventrone, as special teams coordinator, is a bit of an underrated hire. I mean, a guy that you heard a lot about in his past stops, a guy that even gets floated occasionally as a potential future head coach in this league, and you can't forget about the third phase in football. I mean, I don't have to remind Browns fans about, a whole series of games the last couple of years where a key return or a missed block or a missed tackle has flipped the field and swung the outcome of football games. So it's all those little details, too, where I think sometimes we get lost in, hey, they had a good offseason, they signed a couple players. Like, they addressed every single hole on this team. They didn't just put a couple, plugs in. They really overhauled everything they're doing.
All right, before we go to break, Anthony Walker, a guy that played with the Colts, so they played against Deshaun Watson a couple of times a year, talked about what he's seen from Watson this training camp and preseason.
Yeah, it's huge. Just his personality, his leadership has been on full display this whole offseason, all training camp. A lot of guys in the offense just comfortable with him, and he's running the show. So just to have that, that guy, the franchise quarterback, leading the show from the beginning is huge for us.
What do you expect from him on the field this season?
I told him he looks like his old self, the guy that I had to play twice a year in Indy. Back to just controlling the whole game and, not afraid to make a play. I think that's huge for us. That's huge for our offense.
What do you think it means, or what do you think when Deshaun says, I want to be even better than I was in 2020?
That's scary. That's scary because 2020, he almost beat us twice by himself when I was in Indy. So, to see him have that confidence that, he'll be even better is huge for us. I expect it. I hope it happens.
Let me ask you this, Brad. Is that what you define what makes a quarterback one of the better? The stats, they're important to some extent. But how do you judge a guy that, what makes a quarterback really good or elite?
I think a quote he just had there when you talked about making a play, where I think you're talking about leadership and confidence and all those things. You hear about it always in documentaries after the fact and stuff like that. But, whether they say it or not, they're, of course, going to say, oh, we believed the whole time. We knew our guy could come in and win this game. They don't actually believe that unless they have a dude at quarterback. And I think when you have that confidence of it doesn't matter how many points we're down by or if he didn't play well in the first half or he's missed a couple throws, we believe that he's going to right the ship, going to get in that huddle, get everything organized, and he can, overcome any deficit and can work through a game and make that winning play at the end of a contest. That is a confidence that trickles down not only in the offense but on the defense to everyone, where you just never feel like you're out of a football game. You're always giving max effort because you know it's going to matter when the final whistle blows. It matters a lot.
Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Deshaun Watson on the importance of playing in Kevin Stefanski's offense and that offense being tailored to his skill set.
It was huge. At that time, coming in, making a decision, I wanted to expand my offensive knowledge, something different. I think all the teams that I was, looking at had different offenses that I had in Houston. But Kevin, he came in and he was out of all the teams that I visit with, him and AB was the only ones that really pretty much talked about football and what they want to do and kind of incorporate me into the offense. And then you look at the skill guys that, we're thinking about getting, all the things, all the moves that we've been making before is something that they already, told me, going into that whole process. So, I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of Kevin and what he's been building up here in Cleveland. And I think that we can be very successful.
So, Brad, it seems like when they acquired Deshaun Watson, they kind of had a plan of how they wanted to incorporate. And so I'm anxious to see what this offense now looks like with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and I think something you touched on probably the last time I was on too was you can't really do a full-scale offense change 11 weeks into the season when you have guys running, the quote-unquote Jacoby Brissett system. A guy who's a good player, played well last year, but doesn't bring the athletic skill set that Watson does not have the deep downfield passing ability and the ability to extend plays. And, we talk about those as off-script plays or, outside of structure. When you have a guy that good, you kind of make that part of your structure, right? Like it's obviously not planned, but teaching guys how to, okay, the play has broken down. It's a scramble drill. How do you get open for your quarterback? Like we see it in Kansas City all the time. They're winning not on their routes. They're winning on recognizing that Mahomes is going to leave the pocket and then getting open wherever that may be. Like you can coach those things and teach those things. But again, you can't just start coaching that in week 12.
The other thing is the linemen can't go downfield. They have to block, but understand that they can't go past the line of scrimmage to block. So there's a couple of different layers to that as well. I found this really interesting. This is wide receivers with the most first downs on third or fourth down. So the most first down receptions in 2022. Number one, Justin Jefferson. That's not a surprise. Number two is Amari Cooper. I think we've talked about this before. The more you dive into the numbers of Amari Cooper, the more underrated this guy just seems to be. Is it because he won't thump his chest and doesn't scream, "Look at me"? When you look at different metrics, he's really good.
Yeah, that list to me, too, is literally who are the best separators in the NFL, right? Because if you're going to go on a third or fourth down, you can't take a sack. You have to get the ball out fairly quickly. who is going to get separation from the opposing corner or whatever they're going up against from a coverage standpoint, and you can trust to get them the football. And there's no surprise, Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the NFL his entire career, is right there below Justin Jefferson. That's where, what we'd expect him to be. Yeah, you're right. It's probably because he is at a position that, has some personality, some louder people. He kind of goes about his business, stays relatively quiet. He does not get the respect he deserves.
All right, this is from NFL.com, 2023 NFL player rankings on offense. So number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Justin Jefferson. Jalen Hurts is 3. Nick Chubb checks in at number 14. You could argue that Nick Chubb is the most consistent player in the NFL. Set career highs in carries, 302, yards rushing, 1525, touchdowns, 13. More impressive is that he's averaged 5.2 yards per carry for his career, tied for second in NFL history with players at least 1,000 carries. So, again, Brad, we expect more 3 wide receiver sets, less 2 tight end sets. That should mean fewer big guys, right at the line of scrimmage. Does that mean Nick Chubb might average more than 5.2 yards a carry?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that made his, production so far so impressive is that he's faced a very high number of loaded boxes because teams knew they were going to run the football a ton, or there's going to be a lot of play action, so you still would keep backers in there, bring a safety down. He's facing 8-man boxes, and they're not also respecting the quarterback to potentially pull it and throw the football. Now you have to respect Deshaun Watson and his ability to do that, but also even pre-snap, just not be able to he could be even more productive this year than in the past.
So Kevin Stefanski today was asked, will Nick Chubb's role in the offense change drastically with Deshaun Watson at quarterback?
I don't think you change Nick Chubb's role. Obviously, there's things that we'll do as an offense that are different this year, and that's no different than every season you go into. You have adjustments and you evolve a little bit in your run and pass game. So I think that may take place, but Nick is certainly still a very big part of our offense.
And again, Brad, they're going to find a way to get the ball in his hands in space, which they haven't had the ability to do that before.
Right. And that also ties back into the previous conversation where, with Chubb, you haven't seen a lot of, the screens, the quick outs, the getting the ball with blockers in front of him in space. You mentioned the offensive line, knowing not to get downfield too early. Like, that hasn't really been part of his game. There was a lot of that with Kareem Hunt, and that was to a degree, the biggest part of his role. Look, is Chubb going to run, choice routes out of the slot? No. But getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage or near it and let him get ahead of steam, he's going to make guys miss or run straight through them. I think you are going to see him used in different capacities, and he can excel if used the right way.
We talked a little bit about Elijah Moore. What is he a guy that you try to get touches to? How do you think Kevin Stefanski envisions him in this offense?
Yeah, I think the thing with him too, we've obviously talked about, and I'm sorry if my connection here is a little bit unstable. We're close to the line of scrimmage, in the slot, all those things. But Elijah Moore is a dynamic player. He can win downfield. We saw it at Ole Miss throughout his college career. Didn't see a whole lot with the Jets because they couldn't really get him the ball. But he is a jack of all trades. He's not a one-dimensional player.
The other thing is, the reason you put him in the backfield, like the Browns have, it lets you identify who's covering him. Correct? Is that kind of the bottom line is, all right, it creates confusion as well for the defense.
Yeah, and you put him in the backfield, and then you probably have some pre-snap motion, which Kevin Stefanski's always been near the top of the league in. And that, again, not only who's covering him, but then you get a good feel for, okay, is the opposing defense in man coverage? Are they in zone? Who are each guy's responsibilities? He's that type of guy where, some defenses will switch off of a certain receiver, or they'll still mask and disguise their coverage even with pre-snap motion because they feel like they can. With an Elijah Moore, if you have a guy who is, in charge of covering him, he's going to follow. He's not going to trail or try to goad the quarterback into an early throw because they think that Elijah Moore, they can give him a step or two. He helps you, kind of unmask the entire opposing defense.
And when Deshaun Watson was having so much success in Houston, he was really good at that. He was really good at finding matchups and exploiting them. So that's, again, another indication Kevin Stefanski's trying to get him to do or giving him the tools to do things he does well.
You saw that from him, even go back to Clemson, where, look, he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, never has, but the way those guys win is with pre-snap recognition. And so when you know you're going to go with the football, like, just an example, Tua Tagovailoa, no one would think of him as a great deep ball passer because his arm strength, even not even in the Deshaun Watson category, even worse, but if you know where you're going and can throw the ball anticipatorily, you're able to get the ball out so quickly, where he was our highest graded passer last year on 15+ yards downfield, not because he has a cannon, but because he knows before he even hikes the ball where he's going, where to place the ball, how much loft to put on it, because he knows, the speed of his receivers around him. That also comes with chemistry. Yeah, Watson's shown that for a couple of years now. It's a huge part of his skill set.
Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. I appreciate it very much, Brad.
Thanks for having me. Sorry if I was breaking up.
You're good. Brad Spielberger, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff, Pro Football Focus. Want to remind you, leave your predictions for the Browns-Bengals game. Give us some headlines from the game as well, some people you think will do well. We will use them in Friday's show. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.